the gift of life. Lord, one, thank you for blessing us to come to this lesson. Father, we pray that as we're in this lesson, we understand everything you're going to teach us. We pray that you may bless the teachers doing their work, that you may help us to understand and to grasp everything they're going to teach us. And pray for good connection. Bless you, and we thank you in Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Shona. I hope we are all well. Before we really get into today's lesson, with us we have Teacher Percy and Teacher Christine. So I'd like someone to remind us about what we looked at last week. Anyone to remind us about what we looked at? Yes, Pranila.
We learned about the elements of a play.
The elements of a play. Okay. Beijuka, you also wanted to say something?
We did an introduction to plays and we learned the meaning of a play and some of the elements of a play.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Tranila and Zora. So last week we Christine and she brought us up to speed on what a play should have and how it looks like in preparation for us to start on our play, The Return of Mogofu. And she also mentioned that you should read if you hadn't already started reading and finish the play. So today we're going to start on the play. But before we start, by show of hands, how many of us have read? Started reading, finished reading? One hand, two. Okay, the number is rising. 16 hands. So out of 113, which percentage is that now? Okay. Okay. Well, people, you need to get the book if you haven't already, and you need to start reading because, okay, you may put down your hands. You need to start reading this book and finish it. This is something you're preparing for UNEB, okay? And once we finish reading it, now during these COVID times, I don't know if we'll go back to it when we start physical classes. So please take off time and read and finish. You can finish this book in about 2 hours. So just take off 2 hours from your busy schedule. The word busy is in quotes, and read as much as you can to finish the book. Chloe, are you asking something or you have forgotten your hand up? Okay. So today we are starting ourselves off on the book, and maybe before we start, someone could give us or tell us what they think about the book. Anyone who wants to tell us what they think or what the storyline is like, and to get a feel of what you think about this play. Christabel, can you mute yourself? Yes, Shona.
Yes, me, I think that maybe someone who was very important maybe went missing, and then they returned maybe to finish up with something, or to bring peace, or something like that. That's what I think the book is about, because it says the return from growth.
Okay, thank you very much. So someone important went missing. When you look at the title, or when you looked at the title, what's the first thing that came to your mind? When someone says the return of someone, what comes to your mind? Namuli, Nicole?
Sorry, I raised my hand by mistake. I was trying to participate.
Okay, Daphne, Namugabo?
For me, when I hear return, what comes to my mind is that someone had gone very, very far away and suddenly they return back.
Okay. Denise, Navacho?
Yeah, so when I hear the return, like someone who was very important, like those people had gone for a very long time, and after that very long time, he came.
Okay. Denise, you've gone off a bit, but what I've got is that someone had gone away for a long time, and then the person comes back.
Came back.
Okay. Thank you. Benita, Setuba?
When I hear the return of Ngofu, Ngofu left the place, came back, and maybe people were happy to see him, or maybe he caused like a scene or a lot of events with his returning.
Okay. So thank you. Well, at least I think all of us have an idea on what return is and probably what to expect in this book. So of course, when someone says, Akelo Daniela, your hand is up. What do you want to tell us?
Teacher, is it correct to okay, may I think when you say the return of Ngofu, I think this is someone that they have been anticipating for, and when he has finally come, they might be excited or know it.
Okay, thank you. Yes, that is also part of what we'll find in the book. So I think all of us have an idea on what to expect in this book, and all of us, our ideas seem to be on the right track. So from what is on your screen, you can see the title, and you can also see the playwright. Please remember the spelling of that word, playwright. Playwright. It is very important for you to remember the spelling. Lindsay, Natavona, you want to say something?
Yes, teacher. I want you to say that return of Ngofu is like Ngofu was some important person and his return has been awaited by many.
Okay, an important person whose return has been awaited by many people. Yes, that idea is also there in the book. So we are all on the right path. Who is that speaking? Can you just raise your hand? Don't speak as other people are speaking. Someone will see your hand and alert me. So whoever that is, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any raised hands, so I will continue. Okay, so from what we have read, even if it's just the first scene or if we've read the whole book, where does this play happen? From what you have read, which places have you seen in the book? Please get somewhere to write so that you make your own notes. Yes, Shona?
From what I've read, it was in an open air market, like a place with many people.
Okay, So we get into an open air market. Yes, that place exists. Tronila?
There is a cave and also a shrine. They call it a cave, but that cave is a shrine.
Okay, there's a shrine. Do you remember the owner of that shrine, Tronila?
Not really.
Okay. Well, there are two shrines in the book. We'll come across both of them. Paula?
Yes, I was going to say that it takes place like in the market.
Okay, the marketplace. Someone has mentioned that. Thank you. Leila? Leila, Nasuna? Munira, Aliyah?
And the shrine is called Kadesa's shrine.
Okay, so one of the shrines is Kadesa's shrine. Thank you. Okay, so people have given us the various places that we find, but we also need to know what is the name or what are the names of the villages that we have in this book. They are countries, actually, they are not villages. What are the names of the countries that we have in this book? Which continent are we dealing with in this book? Those are two questions. Which continent are we dealing with? Which countries are we looking at? Yes, Daphne.
The continent is Africa.
What shows that it's Africa?
The cover of the book, it shows a person holding Africa, and it shows two hands holding Africa.
Very good analysis. Thank you very much. I don't know how many of us have looked at that cover. Many of us probably just jumped in the book, but the cover clearly shows you hands holding Africa. So we are dealing with an African continent. Mercy, Walea?
The play takes place in Derema and Medica, and the two countries are neighbors.
Okay, thank you very much. So we have two neighboring countries, Nderema and Ndika. Please mark the spelling of Ndika. Usually it gives people a hard time. Mark the
May you please
spelling.
give us the spellings?
Dav Tangaza, please refer to your book. You have a copy of
My
that.
book, I've lost my, I don't know exactly where it is at the moment, and I had wanted the
One of your friends is going to type in the chat. If not, Teacher Christine or Teacher Percy, please type that in the chat. Okay. So those are the two countries we're dealing with. And we refer to them as countries because we see people exiling themselves or running away to the other country. And you can't do that if they're just villages. For villages, you just cross over. But for one to run away from their country when it's unstable, rather to run away from a place when it's unstable, it usually has to be a country. Okay, I think we can continue from there. When you look at this picture, I think it might be a bit faint on some of your screens, but you can get an idea. What is happening in this picture? Daphne?
I can see people are trading. They're selling their goods.
Okay, people are selling their goods. And let me see. Dab?
I think this is like sort of like a closed community. It's like a community sort of like market.
Okay, a community market, okay. So this is supposed to create the idea of an open market that is in the book for you, okay? So people are selling their goods and you can clearly see it's an open place. And the very first scene that we come across in the book is set or happens in a place like this. Of course, I couldn't get a picture where there's like a wheelchair where the first two characters we meet are found, but I think you can picture them coming to some place like this. Sorry. Okay. So we have mentioned these places. Tangaza, you can get your spelling if you haven't already.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay, so
Miss, could you please like go back to the slide and then you just take a screenshot? Thank you.
Paula, please learn to put up your hand, okay? Okay, people. So now that we know where we are in the play, which characters have we come across as we were reading? Which characters did we find? Destiny, Atukunda.
Thoriwa.
Okay, do you want to tell us who Thoriwa is? Is it a man? Is it a woman?
She's a lady.
What else do you know about her? Is she a normal human being, for example?
No, she's one of the people the ancestors sent.
Okay, she's one of the people the ancestors sent. And from what is said, she's not really a normal human being. She seemed to have died, but comes back to tell a story. Okay, so Thoriwa is one person. Let's see. I'm first going to pick people who haven't yet said anything. Amelia, Nanduga. Sorry, Ndunga, sorry.
There is also Thori, who was also sent by the who is also a messenger of the ancestors and is the former husband of Thoriwa.
Okay, thank you very much. So Thori and Thoriwa are formerly a couple when they were still human beings, but now that they're just messengers from the ancestors, they still come together, but the fact that they were married before they died, that is why they say their former husband and wife. Cheryl and Grace.
There is Kadesa. She's a female and she's the owner of the shrine in the second scene. She's also the leader of the exiles from Ndika after the first marriage.
Very good, thank you. Who else hasn't said anything? Let's see. Jolly Esther.
There is Adonijah, who is a good Samaritan with a disturbed mind.
Okay. Joan Natukonda. People, I hope you're writing.
There is Bizia, the of Kadesa, who is also a guy.
Okay, Bizia. Amelie Ampere.
There is Mhando, the head of that's the nation of Mdika.
Okay, so he's the head of Mdika. Okay. Munira.
There is Nora Yu, Mogofu's daughter.
Okay, Nora Yu. Dav. Brianna, she's such
There is Mattia, who is Busia's brother, also a hunter and a god at the Shrine of Peace.
Okay, Mattia. Rachel, Bakuira.
Teacher, I just wanted to say that may you please put on the next slide.
Why?
I wanted to see the question. You're still on the first slide.
Yes, it is okay. The question is the characters in the book. Faith, Mikisa.
There is also Mood, who is a trusted soldier of Mwami Rocho and the leader of the Democratic Republic of Nderema.
Okay. Rebecca, Faith.
There is Elder Mando, who is the new chief of Dinka, and his friends Tange.
Okay. Okay. So I can see that some of you know the characters well. And I hope that more people will actually get into the book to learn their characters. So, who do you know in the play? Some of these people have been mentioned, but no one had talked about Mugofu Ngoda, and yet he's the main character in the play. Then we also have Mugofu Ngoda Senior and Nora, his wife, that is Mugofu Ngoda's mother. So Nora is different from Nora Yu. Please note that difference because it might be very important when you're writing your essays. The rest have been mentioned. And for those who still want the characters, there is that page just before the play starts. Please refer to it. It has the character list that we expect in the book. And it would be very good if you wrote those characters in your book and who they are or their role in the play. There's a picture here from some of the characters that people have been talking about. Can we pick on who would be who, for example, in this book? When someone talks about Nora Yu, for example, if you look at this picture, which person would she represent in your mind? Who would she look like in your mind? Akelo, Daniela?
I think Nora, you would look like this little, the little girl wearing the blue African outfit.
This one?
Yes.
Okay, why?
Well, since I don't know if she's a child, I haven't read the book, but she looks like she'd be playful and running around a lot. So she needed something that's not heavy.
Okay.
So may I give another reason?
Yes.
I think due to the fact that Ngofu was an important person, she looks like, okay, sort of like a chief's daughter or something like that.
Okay. Daphne?
Teacher, for me, I think that Nora Yu is this one who has a flower in her hair. Because when they were mentioning, most of them had and, which means they were married or they got married some time back. But as we can see, these people who are standing together, I can see that Nora is standing. There is one who's standing alone, and of which in her name, he didn't put an and. So I think that's Nora.
Okay. Well, I agree with you that this represents Nora Yu, but I have a different reason. Nora Yu has gone to study, okay? And she has left Africa and been exposed. So probably she's She's one of those girls that would come back dressed more modernly, but still decent. But we can have both. It is okay. I think both can look like her. Let's see, is there someone else whose hand is still up? Jovia Namuga. Jovia, you have run away. Okay. What about Mugofu? Is there anyone in this picture you think would represent Mugofu? Yes, Lindsay?
Teacher, I think he's the man with a red hat and a blue robe.
Why?
He said to be an old seer, and I expected him to be looking decent like that.
Okay. Shauna?
Yes, I think it's the one wearing the one in red, holding the sort of spear, I think. Yeah, because you know he's African, so I don't think he'll be dressing, you know, like in an African sort of way.
Okay. Yes, both of you might probably be correct, but I think he would be more this one, holding a kind of spear or stick. Amelie, Ampere.
Yes, for me, I think it's the one in red, blind.
Your voice is a little low. I don't know if it's me who's not hearing you properly.
Okay, I think that he's the one putting on red, holding a stick, because they also say that he's blind, and I think maybe he holds that stick to help him when he's walking.
Okay, the last hand, Daphne.
Teacher, I think it's the one in red. Because on hearing Mugofu, I think it's somehow kind of some traditional man. That's what I think.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So at least you should be able to see in your mind what some of these characters look like. The people with the bows and arrows and shields and things could be Bizia, Matia, Mude. Okay, so as you read the play, you should see certain things in your mind. Don't just read the play. You should be able to see the places that are being talked about. You should be able to see the characters as they there. Okay, thank you very much for reading. So here we're trying to see the events that happen in the play. So we have a country or a state. It's an imaginary country, so don't go looking at the map of Africa to find Ndika or Nderema. They're not there. So we have Ndika. It is a country, and a conflict arises, okay? Let's imagine that the conflict has arisen between two tribes, okay, that used to be friendly. So when this conflict arises, the losing community or the party that is affected most, the people that are affected most decide to flee and go to the neighboring country. But this is not the first time that a conflict is happening. When we get into the book, we'll find out what caused the first conflict or how the first conflict happened. And then we'll also see the second conflict. So in the book, the story begins from the second conflict. The first conflict is just a flashback of some sort. So when this second conflict happens in Ndika, there's a group of people that decide to run away and leave Ndika, their country. And one of these people is the elderly seer, that is Mugofu Ngoda Senior, okay? So you need to know that we have a father and son with the same name. Now, the father leaves Ndika after the second conflict, and he's an elderly seer. And at the time that he leaves his community or his country, he decides to take his young pregnant wife, that is Nora, okay? So the two of them with a group of people leave Ndika and they go to Nderema. So they cross the border. But unfortunately, because he's an old man, he dies. And remember, it's been a conflict, so probably it has affected his heart and, you know, his state because he's an old man. That is why he loses his life soon after crossing the border. But his young wife, okay, that is Nora, continues, okay? And in the book, you'll find that she's helped by Adonijah to get to Kadesa shrine, okay? So well, we find that when she gets there, they help her deliver, and the son that she gives birth to is Mugofu Ngoda. So she names the son after his father. So she gives birth to him in Kadesa shrine, and this shrine is part of the camp that the first people who fled from Ndika after the first conflict had made. I think many of you have seen or heard about refugee camps. So after the first conflict, the group of people who left Ndika made a camp, and Kadesa was one of them. And in that camp, she also made a shrine. So this is where Nora is taken to, and this is where she gives birth and names her son. So her son grows up in that community. So that is the Mugofu Ngoda that we have. And he's the one who returns to Ndika. Okay, part of the reason why the book is the return of Mugofu Ngoda. I think, let me first put a pause there and ask, in life, have you seen people who look exactly like their parents, or people who have been named after their parents, both names? There are 3 hands that are up. I don't know if they're answering my question or hands.
Teacher, we are answering your question.
Yes, Tranila, what do you want to say?
Teacher, I was saying yes, yeah. I've had someone who was named after their parents.
Did they do things the way their parent was doing them?
No. Yeah.
Okay, Daphne, you want to say something?
Yes, teacher. There are some people they name after their parents, and also in some cases, when let me say you have a grandparent and they pass away, sometimes they name a child according to them because maybe they resemble them or something like that.
Okay. Shona, have you said something?
Yes, teacher, it's the same thing. Usually they name children after maybe their parents or their grandparents to maybe show respect or their late. So
okay.
Teacher.
Divine.
Teacher.
Can we first hear from Divine?
Sometimes they name children after their parents, but sometimes they are completely different from their parents and behave differently.
Okay. So sometimes children are named after their parents, but they can be very different from their parents and behave very differently from them. Lindsay, your hand is up again.
Teacher, I've seen people who are not named after their parents, but they have the same behavior as their parents.
Okay, that is also possible. So all the scenarios that we are talking about are possible. Mercy, you're saying something?
Yes, teacher. Sometimes the child looks exactly like the father or like the mother, so they name the child the father's name, and then they put a little junior there to mean that this is that person, the junior version.
Okay, thank you. And probably
Teacher.
Michelle, why don't you tap your hand and do like everyone else is? What do you want to say?
I want to say that sometimes people name their children by they name their children from their grandparents or their grandparents or their fathers to enable their names to continue living on for another generation.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so usually it is part of African culture, and many of you, when you ask your parents why they gave you certain names, they'll tell you are named after so and so or so and so. So this is exactly what happens when Nora gives birth to her son, Mugofu Ngoda. So she names her son after his father, and we see that, like some people, Mugofu also becomes as useful as his father was. So his father is the elderly seer. Okay. Then when Mugofu is born, he becomes very useful to the people of Nderema, as well as to Kadesa in her shrine. Okay. So he kind of lives up to his father's fame. And because he lives up to his father's fame, that is why the people in Ndika want to have him back, okay? And that is why he returns. I hope that is clear, okay? So we're still continuing with the plot. I need another person who hasn't said anything yet to read for us. Someone who hasn't said anything yet. Please put up your hands, okay? I can clearly see. And I know that people who have said things and those who haven't yet said. Cynthia Ijang.
His counsel is sought, and he is such a strong pillar in Nderema's development.
Cynthia, can you be louder than that? I don't know if it's your network. We are getting feedback.
And he is such a strong pillar in Nderema's development. His son becomes the personal assistant to the Prime Minister of Nderema and the personal doctor of the leader there. His daughter is also a well-respected figure who is studying international relations at the University of Southampton. The new progressive leader in Ndika, the country where Ngofu has his roots, lands of Ngofu's existence. He embarks on efforts to bring back Ngofu Ngoda to Mbika, where he belongs. He sends emissaries who convince Ngofu to be the chief guest at the forthcoming National Remembrance Day. Ngofu graces the occasion with his daughter, only for his health situation to deteriorate to, to, to deteriorate as he makes his speech.
Okay, thank you. Though your network was a little unclear. So, Johanna, do you want to give us a second reading?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Where exactly am I starting from?
From the beginning.
Okay. His cancer is sought, and he is such a strong pillar in the Rema's development. His son becomes the personal assistant to the Prime Minister of Nderema and the personal doctor of the leader there. His daughter is also a well-respected figure who is studying international relations at the University of Southampton. The new progressive leader in Ndika, the country where Ngofu has his roots, learns of Ngofu's existence. He embarks on efforts to bring back Ngofu Ngonda to Ndika, where he belongs. He sends emissaries who convince Ngofu to be the chief guest at the forthcoming National Remembrance Day. Ngofu graces the occasion with his daughter, only for his health situation to deteriorate as.
Okay, thank you very much. So, in the first part, we actually saw the birth of Ngofu Ngoda Jr. So he grows up and he becomes an important person in Derema. And we see that he's a wise man because his counsel is sought by the people in Derema. And we are told that he's such a strong leader. Okay, so he becomes someone who's very important, and he grows up and also gives birth to children. So he has two children that are spoken about, a son and a daughter. And we are told in the play that his son is a personal assistant to the Prime Minister of Nderema, as well as his personal doctor. Then his daughter is a well-respected figure who had gone to study at the University of Southampton. Okay, so much as she goes to study, she still comes back and is a responsible lady. She doesn't become irresponsible like we see sometimes people do when they go abroad to study. So because he's a well-respected man and his children have achieved in life, we see that this information gets to Ndika, where there is a new leader, okay? So Mando, the new leader, hears about Mugofu's existence, this young Mugofu, and how important he is and how he's respectable and things like that. And he feels that it's about time that Mugofu came back, okay? So it's the same thing that happens even around us. I think we've had in Uganda where people were exiled and somehow they get to come back to Uganda. And when they come back to Uganda, they are treated in a respectable way. So that also happens in our country. So Mando tries to get Ngofu back to Ndika. So he sends people to get him. And that is how Ngofu is able to come back or to return to Ndika, because these emissaries or messengers have done their job. So they bring him back for the National Remembrance Day. But unfortunately, when he's at that occasion, we see that his health is not very good. And we also see that his daughter, remember, she's been to university and has studied is able to grace the occasion. Okay, so Mugofu returns to Mdika, but his health is not that good. So basically, that is what this play is about. Someone who left, a father who left with his pregnant wife, then the pregnant wife gives birth to a son who also becomes very important as much as his father was. This son also gives birth to his children, and then the leader in the country from which he'd exiled or his parents had fled from decides to call him back, and he does come back to his home country. I think we all know that east or west, home is best. So he does come back to his home, and that is why we have this book. So that is how the events will run. Of course, in this summary, we haven't talked about some of the characters that are in there because we want you to do the reading. And in our next lesson, I think we'll begin from Act 1, Scene 1. Okay, so I could take some questions. Noella, Casemire, your hand is up.
I'm a little bit confused because when you go through the characters, it says Nora is Ngofu Ngoda's expectant wife, but I thought Nora is his mom and the wife of his late father.
Can someone explain to Noella? Someone who has understood what I've been saying. Let me see. Amelia, do you want to respond to Noella?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No, you said when you're explaining, you said that Nora is the mother of Mugofu Ngoda, the son, Mugofu Ngoda Jr. And Nora Yu is the daughter. You told us to note the difference between Nora and Nora Yu. Yes.
Okay. I don't know if your question has been answered. We have two Mugofu Ngodas, okay? One is the father and the other is the son. Please don't be confused. That is why I ask people to talk about their experiences. Have they seen people who have been named after their parents? Someone gives you both names, and someone pointed out rightly that sometimes these people are given in brackets junior to separate the father from the son. So we have two Mugofu Ngodas. One is the elderly seer who crosses the border to Nderema, and he dies just after crossing the border. So the young pregnant wife, the son that she gives birth to, is also named Mugofu Ngoda. And this young pregnant wife is Nora. Then Mugofu Ngoda, the son now, junior, also grows up and gives birth to children. And the daughter that he has, he names this daughter after his mother. Only that this daughter is Nora Yu, okay? Later on in the book, we'll find out the full name of that Yu. I think it's Oliver Hope or something. So please don't get confused, okay? Daphne, your hand is still up.
Teacher, I want to ask you in a paper to write a plot. Should it be that long, or you can just write something short?
When you're asked to write about the plot of the book, you're just writing a summary of what is in the book, okay? So in your own words, how you have understood the book. But there really won't be a question that tells you to write the plot of the book. This is just to expose you to what we are going to find as we are reading. So some of these events are what we shall find.
Thank you, teacher.
Okay, Aliyah?
Teacher, what is Mugofu's son's name?
He's Mugofu Ngoda.
No, the second Mugofu, who's the brother of Norayu.
We don't really get to know that name, okay? But when we read, if we find it, you shall actually see it. Rachel?
Teacher, when we are differentiating between Mugofu Ngoda Senior and Mugofu Ngoda Junior, do we like put Senior and Junior in their names?
Not really. But I know that the questions you shall be finding will usually be very specific. It will be hard for you to confuse. But you need to know that that title, the return of Mugofu, that is the return of Mugofu Ngoda Junior, okay? Because the father left and died. So the return of Mugofu is now the return of the son, okay? I hope I've been understood. Daphne, you'll be the last to ask. I think we're running out of time.
Teacher, what's the meaning of blind seer?
Who wants to tell us what is a seer or who is a seer? Who is a seer? Rebecca Faith?
I think a seer is like a priest or someone who gives advice and healing to people.
Okay, thank you. Praise, you want to say something?
I think a seer is someone who can prophesize about what's going to happen.
Okay, so a seer, simply put, that is a prophet, someone who can tell the future, who can see into the future. That is why they're called a seer. So blind seer means that this Mugofu Ngoda Senior was blind, physically blind, but much as he was blind, or ironically, much as he was blind, he could actually see what was going to happen. So he could foretell. Okay, so you have an assignment here. You're going to find out how many acts we have in the play. Remember last week, as teacher Christine took us through the elements of a play, or what shows that something is a play, we talked about acts. So you're going to go back to the book and count or look out how many acts are in that play, how many scenes do we have in the play. Remember, acts are divided into scenes. So if you come across Act 1, how many scenes are in that act? Act 2, how many scenes? Like that. Then after you have answered those two questions, you're also going to read Act 1, scenes 1 and 2, and you write down briefly in your book what happens in Act 1, scenes 1 and 2. And those are the two scenes that we're going to look at next week. So please do your reading, because it might be hard for us to read page by page as we go along. But if you have sat down to read on your own, it will be very easy for you to follow the lesson. So please answer those questions in your books. I still see some hands that are up. Let's see. Zora, what do you want to say?
When we're writing what happens in Act 1, scenes 1 and 2, should we write them separately or do we write them as one summary?
You separate them. Act
Thank
1
you.
and then Act 1, scene 2. Daphne?
Teacher, when they are asking how many scenes are in the play, are you supposed to be like, let me say Act 1 has 3 scenes and Act 2 has these scenes? Is it supposed to be like that, or you just count the scenes all together?
No, separate them into acts, okay? It will be easier for you.
Okay, thank you, teacher.
Okay. Teacher Prosi, do you have anything to add?
Yes, please.
Do you have
Only
any-
one. Yes. Only one thing. I just want to remind the girls to buy the text, and it's because it's a good thing to read or to discuss as you're seeing what you're discussing. So I encourage the girls to buy the text, and also we pray for the parents to get the money to buy for them the text. Thank you, Teacher Teddy.
Okay. Looks like Teacher Christine is off. So I guess we can call it a day. Rebecca Faith, your hand is still up. Are you asking something?
Teacher, yes, are these the only books we are going to do for Form 3? The only set books?
Which ones?
Grief Child, Growing Up with Poetry, and The Return of Gofo. Are they the only set books we are going to do, or there are others?
There are other books. We first gave you the list that we think you might cover before you get back to school.
Thank you.
Okay, so have yourselves a nice weekend. God bless you.
Yes, Teacher Teddy, you get me now?
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Isabella.